Hey everybody, welcome back to the developer track. Next up is Abhishek. Abhishek is going to be talking about VM ingestion. So everybody please give Abhishek a big virtual warm welcome. Over to you, Abhishek.
Hi everyone, welcome to this talk with regard to feature we worked upon, VM ingestion. It deals with importing and exporting VMware instances. If an operator is having an existing infra and wants to adopt CloudStack, this feature makes the life easier. Myself, Abhishek Kumar. I am software engineer at ShapeBlue. I've been working on CloudStack for last 3 years, and I've been committer since last year. So yeah, that's about me. Going ahead, this will be the agenda for the talk. There will be first we look at brief introduction for the VM ingestion process, concept of unmanaged instances that was introduced with this feature, a brief timeline of the feature, how it evolved and what improvements have been made. Then we will look at how we can import unmanaged instances, some prerequisites and behavior that imported instances will show. This feature added two particular APIs initially, one for listing unmanaged instances and second for importing unmanaged instances. Next, we will discuss a small tool or utility which was added with this feature for discovering existing network on a vSphere environment. We will discuss about exporting or unmanaging instances, that is guest virtual machines that are already present in the CloudStack that can be unmanaged. We will also look at import export UI tool, which was, if you have seen Giles talk regarding features in 4.16. So this has been added in 4.16 release. Next, we will see a short demo. Hopefully that works okay. And finally, what more we can add and look forward to. So moving ahead. So VM ingestion was added in CloudStack 4.14 release. It is a feature that allows importing existing virtual machines that are already present on a vSphere environment into CloudStack. It becomes useful for operators which do have a vSphere environment and want to adopt CloudStack for all its goodness. So it makes their life easier because most other things like primary storages or storage networks can be created. But for existing running or stopped VMs on a vSphere environment, to import them into CloudStack, it needs some kind of functions. So this feature is all about that. It includes the concept of unmanaged instance or VM. Instance and VM are used interchangeably here. So essentially, they are the virtual machines. So unmanaged instances are those virtual machines that are present at the hypervisor end, but they have no record in CloudStack. Operator can make any operations on them from the hypervisor, but to CloudStack, they are not visible. With this feature, such virtual machines can be imported into CloudStack. And once they are imported, they work like regular virtual machines that users or admin deploy from CloudStack, and all the operations that are available in CloudStack UI or through the API are also available for these virtual machines. Now, brief timeline for this feature. This, as I already said, this was added in 4.14.0 release. We added list and import instance functionality. It was API only functionality, so it was implemented keeping in mind that there will be multiple existing virtual machines, and there will be some kind of scripting from operator who want to import them into CloudStack. In 4.15, we added another improvement that is to unmanage or export an existing CloudStack VM from the CloudStack UI or the API. This could be for the use cases when operator does not want certain VMs to be visible in CloudStack, but they want them running at the hypervisor end. In 4.16 upcoming release, we made an improvement in terms of UI, and import export VM tool has been added. A short preview of it has been already shown during the conference. So let's move ahead. Moving on to importing instances into CloudStack, there are some prerequisites like vSphere cluster on which VM is running should be added prior to import. As we know, there's one-to-one mapping to CloudStack cluster to vSphere cluster. So standard requirements apply there. Also, for successful import, storage networks and templates must also be added or created. Templates part is optional because operator can choose to use a dummy template. This feature added a concept of dummy template where the VM will be assigned a dummy template value, but when the user or the admin tries to reinstall the VM, they need to provide a real template. Also, it also added concept of tags and migration. So as it is known that VM will be already running on a particular host, and it could be added. The host has been added in CloudStack with a particular host tag. Similarly, the storages which VM is using are added with a particular storage tag in the CloudStack. But during the import, operator chooses to pass a offering, service offering or disk offering for the disk with a conflicting host or storage tag. Then in that case, after import, VM will be migrated to proper storage or host. There is also functionality for automatic network mapping. So for all the NICs of the VM, based on the VLAN ID, it tries to map it to correct network in the CloudStack. So this is essentially for L2 networks. For isolated networks, it may need mapping each NIC individually because it might need IP addresses. There's also one limitation, like after import, console access is only available once VM is started. Not particularly reboot, but start action in the CloudStack using API or UI. There are some more behavior and prerequisite notes in the document CloudStack official documentation. So you can follow this link or maybe search importing virtual machine in the CloudStack documentation, and that should show you the proper documentation there. Moving ahead, this feature added, as I already mentioned, list API for listing all the unmanaged instances. So for a given cluster that is a vSphere cluster that is already added into CloudStack, we can list all the virtual machines that are already running or present on that particular cluster. So this API gives all sort of details of that virtual machine, like mapping them to cluster CloudStack resources such as cluster, host, etc. So it returns a response with the details of cluster, host, name of the VM in vSphere, OS display name, memory, power state, etc. For disk and NIC, it gives an array response where all the disk and NICs of the VM are listed with proper details such as disk ID, size, data store, etc. List API is fairly simple. We just need to pass cluster ID, CloudStack cluster ID, for which we want to list unmanaged instances. We can also filter them based on the name of the virtual machine, that is vSphere name. So on a successful call, it returns an output like this. It shows all the details that may be required by the operator for importing the virtual machine into CloudStack. As you can see, it shows the disk as an array output. This particular virtual machine was having only a single disk, so only one of them is returned. Also, here host ID is CloudStack host ID and name what the host is having. Similarly, for NIC, it shows all the details. There's also something like VLAN ID or network port group maybe, but this is not shown in this particular screenshot. Next is import API. So once the operator has gathered all the information about the unmanaged instance, all its details, and he wants to import it into CloudStack, he can do it so with the import unmanaged instance API. It allows importing VM into CloudStack, create all the records for the VM, for its volumes, for network NICs, and all the other records that it needs. It provides a number of parameters that can be used. So it can set display name, host name. VM can be imported for a particular account in a domain for a particular project. Operator can assign a particular template. It needs a service offering. And similarly, for NIC and data disk, it can provide a mapping for network or disk offerings correspondingly. It also allows setting some of the details similar to deploy virtual machine API. So details parameter can be used to provide a map for that. There's also option for migrate allowed. So this is useful for the case, as I explained earlier, where operator chooses to pass a service offering or disk offering which conflicts with current allocations. So after import, VM will be migrated to correct host or storage if storage tags or host tags don't match. Force parameter is essentially related to MAC address conflict. So even if there is a MAC address that VM is having, which is already there in CloudStack records, it allows importing if this parameter is passed. The output for this API will be similar to what we get from list or deploy virtual machine API. So if we go to next screen, Here is a example import and managed instance API call. As we can see, we need to pass vSphere name and the cluster on which this VM is running. We can pass service offering, template ID, etc., and we get same response as we have as we see with deploy virtual machine API. Here we see we passed NIC network list and NIC IP address list. This must be an isolated network, so we needed to assign an IP. Auto keyword here allows auto assignment of IP. So this will automatically assign one of the IP address from CloudStack available IP addresses. IP address change only affects after VM is restarted, so that is something to be kept in mind. All these details are also present in the documentation. So yeah. Along with these particular APIs, this feature also added in 4.14, this Discover Networks utility tool. This is helpful because operator needs to create all the existing networks into CloudStack. So they probably need to know what all networks are present on the vSphere environment. So this is a Python 3 script that was bundled with CloudStack Common package and can be found in the scripts VM hypervisor VMware directory of the CloudStack Common install. It is based on PyVMO MI Python SDK and therefore needs the module installed on the machine from where this script is called. It gives a bunch of parameters that can be passed, such as host. It is the vSphere host, port, username, password. We can filter networks based on a particular cluster, so it provides that option. We can also see debug logs while running it. Here is an example call for this tool. Once called, it gives all the networks, firstly count of the networks that are there, then details of the network like port group, vSwitch. There's also VLAN ID, but it was probably truncated in this screenshot. Then it also gives all the list of all the virtual machines that are using this network and some details about their NIC that is using it. So moving on, next part is exporting or unmanaging instances. This functionality was added in 4.15. So this is just reverse of importing an unmanaged instance. So it is like there's already there are already running virtual machines in CloudStack environment, but for some reasons admin wants to unmanage them and don't allow CloudStack to access them. They can do it so with this functionality. It introduced the API unmanaged virtual machine, although this functionality was added both in UI and API. And it is admin only functionality like import as well. So yeah. Import unmanaged virtual machine API is fairly simple. It is just providing ID of the VM. Once VM is successfully unmanaged from CloudStack, it remains on the hypervisor end. No changes done there. It's just that only the records for the virtual machine is removed from the CloudStack. Output for the API is also fairly small. It just gives a success key. When there is an error, it provides details regarding that. So moving ahead, next in the improvement terms is import export UI tool, which is being added in 4.16 release. So this allowed providing functionality to operator in UI itself. All the unmanaged VMs can be listed and imported into CloudStack using UI. Also, it gave this file transfer kind of UI where both managed and unmanaged virtual machines are listed. Unmanaged are obviously those which are not controlled by CloudStack, and managed that are controlled by CloudStack. In terms of this functionality, multiple VMs can be unmanaged at a time. Like you can do multi-select and then click unmanage. But for importing right now, it limits only importing a single virtual machine. This is what import instance form looks like. It provides all the options that are given by API, like display name, host name, domain, project, etc. And also gives this information about the VM, like CPU, memory. So it makes easier for operator to assign correct offerings, network, etc. to the VM. Okay, so let's try to see a demo for this. I am inside my management server for my environment. Let me log in into it. This feature is admin only, so I need to log in as root admin. Okay, so this particular environment is having 3 clusters. 2 of them are VMware and one is KVM. So as this feature is only for VMware right now, I can do operations only on VMware cluster. First, let's see API. I go into CloudMonkey. Let me a little bit. So I can call list unmanaged instance API here for my cluster. P1C1 and P1C3 are VMware, so I can call API for one of them. It lists all the VMs, like if I go to the top, 2 unmanaged instances are listed here. All the details are provided for each of them. Similarly, I can call it for other. This one was having a little bit more unmanaged instance. So like you can see here, for NICs, it returned multiple NICs, and similarly for volumes or disk, it returned 4 disks because this VM was having 4 disks. So this was about list API. I can similarly call import API with CloudMonkey or any other command line tool. I can call import. It would look something like this, pretty big. I can try this, but it was an old command. Although let's try if this works. So on successful import, it returned me all the details which CloudStack is having about this virtual machine. This was same as what I showed earlier in the presentation. Same VM was imported again after unmanaging. So it fills in all the details like NIC adapter, root disk controller based on the result it got from list API. Now let's go into the UI. Once logged in as root admin, I can go into tools section. This is newly added in 4.16. Then I can go into import export instances page. This presents me a UI like this. I can select zone, pod, and cluster. So I can select one of my cluster. Let's select P1C1. It is VMware. It listed all the managed instances and unmanaged instances. If you can see, there are 4 instances listed here and 4 here. If you can note down names of unmanaged instances and then try to check them in instances section, they should not be visible right now. None of them are here. But if I go into my vCenter, I can see them. Like one of them was Intersect and Skynet 1, Ultron 1, R2D2. So all of them are here, but CloudStack was not able to list them because they are not accessible to CloudStack right now. I can go back and then select one of them. Let's select Ultron 1 for now. On selection, it gives me this form. Because this is a running VM, some of the things are disabled in terms of compute offering, because for a running VM, we need to select exact compute offering. Some of these parameters are required, so they show with required icon. Once I fill them and select all the things, I can import this. Quickly going through this template, either I can select a particularly deployed template or use temporary template for import. It provides detail of the OS type, so I can select one of them. Let's choose MSCC, which is Machinina template. Let it remain medium instance for now. I can also use custom offering in this case, but I will let it remain like this. Since this VM is having multiple disks, I can select one of them as root disk. So right now it is hard disk 1. I can either go to the vCenter, or using the list API, I can make the decision which one is root disk. For other disk, it gives me this table, which provides option for either choosing a particular disk offering, or CloudStack will automatically assign one of the offering. It will assign a custom offering in this case. In this list, all the offerings which have lesser size are filtered. So I will select this for this one. Third disk is also listed. For NICs as well, it shows me all the NICs and provides the option for selecting network and then IP address if I need to. I can either choose to select automatically assign or provide a manual IP address. Networks are filtered based on VLAN ID. So only those networks which have same VLAN are shown here. This form intelligently makes all the auto selection. So in most cases, operator does not need to make any changes here. I can choose migrate allowed if I was having storage or host X, but right now in my environment, I didn't set anything. I can also choose force if there was a MAC address conflict issue, but I think it is not there right now, so I will just click OK. it says successfully imported. The VM is moved from left to right. I imported Ultron 1. It shows here Ultron 1 in the name because the name has been picked from internal name, but display name should be test import 101, as I said there. Going back to the page, it is right now my cluster is having 5 VMs which are managed. I can also select to unmanage them. Let's manage 2 VMs at a time. It gives me this confirmation dialog. On successful unmanage, those VMs started showing in unmanaged instances table. So this was the short demo. Let's move back to the presentation. I hope this feature makes life easier for people who want to do this kind of operation. Moving ahead, what's next in this functionality? Right now, we can only import single VM through UI. So maybe in future, we can provide a UI like this, where we can multi-select VMs and batch import. So that would allow importing multiple VMs at a time for a single account or project if they need to. Also, in terms of improvements, CloudStack is improving every day. New features are being added. So we might also have to look how they are supported in VM ingestion process. So something like IPv6, which is currently not supported during import, we can have them. Also, as CloudStack is gaining traction like anything, and more people want to adopt it, we would like to have it for the feature for other hypervisors as well. So it gives that holistic kind of functionality for a cloud operator. Also, this new tools concept that is being introduced in 416, which makes some of the things easier. More and new tools can be added in the same. So something which makes life easier, or onboarding into CloudStack of an existing infra easier would be great. So that's my take. There can be different use cases for different operators. So yeah, something we need to discuss and collaborate in community. Thank you. That's all from my side. These are my Twitter and email. So if you want to connect, and thank you for listening me. If you have any questions, please.
Thank you very much, Abhishek. Listen, we've gone a little bit over time, so we're not going to have time for questions. But Abhishek, if you can just, all the questions are in the conference site. If you could just handle those offline afterwards, otherwise we're going to go bleed into the next talk. But last thing, just to say, everybody, please give Abhishek a great big round of applause virtually. See you on the next talk.
Thank you all.